Everybody, this is Perch. I want to welcome. There's been a big change to the Perch channel as of a couple days ago, which people may not have noticed. Hopefully, you haven't noticed. This is one of those changes where I don't want anybody to notice. But I basically have enlisted some help in uploading the videos and kind of managing some of the scheduling and all that kind of stuff. In theory, weeding through the comments that get held. And I primarily started this because I keep noticing that YouTube holds a lot of comments. They block a lot of comments that are completely benign. And I don't quite understand why. There's no consistent pattern. So I thought, hey, give somebody the keys to kind of come in here for a half an hour and just clean it up and, do that every day. And, they seem to be happy, want to do it. So, we've been giving it a try, and at least seems to be, the recording of this video, it's been happening a couple days, seems to be a little bit better. More comments are getting through. So that's good. And, cool. So, I'm just going to continue to abstract myself further and further away from the channel, and then everything will be beautiful. No, I'm kidding. Some people have asked me, by the way, hey, why don't I like and heart like more, like all the video, like every single comment like I used to? And the answer to that is kind of, I don't want to say embarrassing, but you may not like the answer. And that is that I didn't like and heart all the comments. There was a script that ran that just did it for me. And apparently you do get better engagement, better money if you do that to every single comment. But, at some point I'm like, what am I doing? I'm letting a robot, basically say I like all these comments, and, that doesn't seem right. And so I stopped doing that. And, I did notice some of the engagement went down, and oh, well. But it seems more honest. But anyway, that's what's going on. I guess the other way to answer that was I was never actually reading and liking all the comments. So there you have it. Which maybe that's a dick thing to say, but it's the truth. Anyway, here's a mail viewer question. It says, "Hey Perch, been an off-on viewer for a few years. I always would be fascinated by the people who were listening and then decided to stop and then came back. That I get why somebody would stop. I don't necessarily get why somebody would come back. So, but anyway, welcome off and on. Welcome back. I was wondering your take on a pretty common question. What is the best way for someone like me, a straight white male with no prior fans, who is too moderate to be accepted by the wild politics of either side, to break into the industry?" Okay. There's exactly 3 ways people frequently recommend the definitive modern starting point, but none of these seem to work for me. Crowdfunding is a popular suggestion among a certain crowd, but with no prior audience, such as a popular YouTube channel, how will I even sell enough to break even? Besides, where am I going to get the 150 plus required per page when I'm barely beginning my professional career? Okay, that's fair. That's very fair. I do think there's a myth and illusion that if you just crowdfund, you'll make like all the money's in crowdfunding. But the people who say that are clearly not paying attention and not crowdfunding. So it's not that simple. It's definitely not as simple as just surprise and then you make all the money. It doesn't actually work. But continuing. There's the mainstream industry, though many would argue that manga and YA graphic novels are the new mainstream at this point. I would be one of those people arguing that. I mentioned that I'm politically moderate, that is politically milquetoast, but these days the very act of not having a strong opinion is considered offensive in and of itself by the types of people who recruit for the typical traditional comics industry. The fact that I won't go out and post rants about Roe v. Wade or Trump, or frankly, whatever it is they feel like that day, is seen as sinful in their eyes. Besides, they're in the business of hiring diverse individuals, and I'm not diverse enough for them. Okay. I don't think that's as true as you think. And when I say true, I don't mean your politics. I think your politics will hold you back in this industry. I think you'd be a fool to say they don't. There's creators like, no, we hire conservatives too. That is true. There are conservatives inside comics. However, they either have a lot of, in the mainstream business, they either have a lot of pre-existing work, or they hide their politics, quite bluntly. And the ratio, and anyone who says otherwise is lying. And I don't even say it with heat or with malice. It's just a fact. You're in a 90-10 split of liberal to conservatives. And for what it's worth, it's also very similar to that in music and in games and a lot of entertainment. That is the way it breaks down. I'm not getting into whether that's fair or not. I'm just saying it's like the sun comes up in the east and goes down in the west. It's like that. But the part that I don't think is necessarily true is if you go out there and you just say, hey, fuck Trump, and you do all that kind of stuff. I don't actually think it. I don't think it gets better. And by that I mean I don't necessarily think that you're going to automatically just find job offers floating across your desk. I mean, case in point, Joe Glass has said all the right things, has posted tons of photos, making it extremely clear that he is super gay, not just a little gay, but ultra gay. And he's done all that. Do you see him getting a lot of work? No, he doesn't get a lot of work. So I don't know that it doesn't matter. I guess is my point. It doesn't. How to get work in that method, the mainstream method, is befriend editors, and oftentimes that does mean you can get into political things and other stuff, but basically befriend editors, carefully balance between being extremely cheap to work with and not not a crazy asshole. Like, I mean, there's just there's a weird little maze to go through, and then you might be able to make your way in. I wouldn't call that a great route. I think if your goal is to try and get work at Marvel or DC out the gate, you're fighting a losing battle. I think there is a better way. We'll get to it at the end here. Then finally, we have then there's back to the mail. It says then there's webcomics, but how would I make any profit at all? Isn't a webcomics notoriously hard to monetize? I can't pour 25 plus hours a week into something I'll never see a penny on. Not because I don't have the passion, of course not, but because I simply need to spend my time wisely. So what's the alternative to these options, though? Trying to publish comics in another country entirely? Trying to falsely claim that you're making American manga as a dishonest marketing tactic? I mean, I don't know, maybe. Some other third thing, I really don't know. So sorry for the slightly long message. Just curious, really, since you never seem to buy into whatever the latest trend is. I'm hoping I can get a more rational answer for you than I usually do. All right, so if you want to get into comics, I would suggest this route. And keep in mind, it is not foolproof. And I'm going to give you this advice completely divorced from, whatever you may want to do personally, whatever kind of personal feelings you have, socially, morally, politically, etc. Okay, this is my advice for you. First of all, identify 3 to 4 comic companies that are small. And by small, I mean, not Boom, too big. I'm talking Aftershock, Black Mask, Mad Cave, that kind of range. Okay, find some of those. Find ones that are not what I would call activist publishers. Now, that's people. Several of you are going to be irritated by what I'm about to say, but Black Mask, even though it certainly has a kind of industry reputation, this isn't. Again, your goal, you said, is to break into comics, not create your own crowdfunding empire. Okay, if you said break into comics and ultimately mainstream comics, that's what you're trying to do. If your ask was I want to break into crowdfunding, then it's a very different answer. I would say, yeah, you're going to have to start building up your online presence, going on YouTube, become an interesting personality, get something made. Just don't watch your costs closely. Use that to kind of launch a personality of yourself and your product. And there's a route there. But if your goal is to break into mainstream comics, then my advice to you is find a couple of those smaller companies, steer clear of ones that have a reputation that is troubled. Okay, and that may not be intuitive, but some companies like if the company is not paying people or has a dodgy reputation, steer clear of that. Steer clear of ones that are involved in the culture war directly, even if they don't want to be. So again, this will be the part that pisses people off. It'll break your heart. If you go do a comic for Peter Sametti's brand, for his work, you're running a risk. And I mean, he would say it himself. If you get something published there, it's going to be hard to transfer that experience, that knowledge, that writing credit or art credit to the mainstream comic industry. They're going to view him as, if you're going that route, you're going a route to give yourself some exposure to potentially go the crowdfunding route. It's not going to help you with Marvel or DC. That's not a knock against him. It's just it is what it is. Literally, it is what it is. Dynamite, love the guy, love Nick, great. That one in a different way may not be the best way to get yourself ultimately to Marvel or DC because of kind of the properties that they have and kind of some pre-existing notions about Vampirilla and some of those. It will be harder. I would suggest go to one of these companies that is extremely small and offer to do some work there. Expect that you're going to be paid close to nothing, but get yourself a published credit at a company like that. And basically what you're trying to do is not only get yourself published credit, but also build up a reputation for delivering things on time. Get some quotes, or basically get some thank you mails or some proof that you were able to go through the various like silly logistics of just getting things turned around in time, getting it done, where you are a drama-free person. Basically, it's like, hey, the deadline was June 30th. I got it in ahead of schedule. It was good. We were done. Like that's what you need to do. Do that. And I think if you do that, then you have something in hand, something you could approach a bigger publisher, working your way up to say, hey, I've got this published work. I'd love to do something for you. I'd love to pitch on what you have. But you're coming in with as not an unknown entity, and you're not coming in with anyone who has a stigma in any one direction. You're just coming in, with some work published under your belt, and you build yourself up. So that will ultimately lead to good. It's basically going to lead to some conversations and get you involved with some editors who will certainly then want to double check and double click on whether you're too conservative or whatever, who you voted for. You'll certainly get there, but it's the right route to get to if you want to ultimately work your way into comics, mainstream comics. Now, if you ask me, I don't think that's a good. I wouldn't do it. If I wouldn't do everything I just said, that will lead. That's the most successful route to get you where you want to go. But I don't think it's all. I mean, if you're a talented person, good writer, I think it's a bad idea. So, but this is the difference between achieving the goal you said you wanted versus maybe enjoying life and enjoying comics and kind of that route. That's a very different challenge. If you're doing that, then I think the right thing to do is figure out your dream story. Figure out what it is that you want to make. Make it. Don't think about crowdfunding right out the gate. Just make your comic. And in making your comic, build up a little bit of brand. Go through the logistics of pretending that you are a mini publisher. You're a little Marvel, or you're a little DC, or Boom, or whatever. And basically get a website for your property made, practice writing a press release, basically do all the steps so you have a feel for everything that is involved in the comic you're making. From there, with something in hand, a comic finished, basically go down the route of deciding, do you want to try to learn what it's like to publish through a comicsology? Do you want to try and crowdfund at that point with something already in hand? Do you want to, how do you want to basically do your property and make yourself an empire? And I say this because a lot of these small comic publishers have as much money as you do, or potentially have borrowed through angel investors and other things, and maybe they have $500,000 in the bank, which is not truly in the bank because it's like a second mortgage on their house. And so maybe the right answer is, if you want to break into comics and you want to produce a comic and be a writer, maybe the answer is be a publisher first, a publisher of your own stuff. Make your own company. If you have some skills in running a business, or at least for presenting the illusion that you can run a business, make a logo, make a brand, be a company, and just go for it. And don't worry that you're too small, because most of the small publishers are as small or smaller than you because they're saddled with debt. So if you do that, you put yourself in a very different stage where you're in the driver's seat of your comics. And then my other last piece of advice there is then steer clear hard from any of the politics and any other bullshit. Just your focus is, produce comic, ship comic. Don't make part of your brand or your product, pro-Trump, anti-Trump, whatever it happens to be. You don't go and say, I'm a conservative or I'm a liberal. That, believe it or not, most people who want to buy your product don't really give a shit what you are, conservative or liberal. They care about the comic. So why don't feed that information out into the world? Just let it go. Just focus on your comic, put the story out, and then whatever you are, you are. That's maybe the best way to go. Anyway, good luck on your journey, and thanks for listening.